Hi, friends.
Hi, friends.
We're back for episode 31 of the Brunch and Judge.
Yes.
Yes, we're your hosts. I'm April.
And I'm Claire.
And every once after, I don't know, every 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10 episodes, we remember to say that.
Right.
So,
I think we've been better about it recently.
no,
I
we
feel
we
like
suck. We never do it. Never ever.
we suck.
I think we did it like once 5 episodes ago, and then like another one we remembered halfway through the episode.
Yeah, that was like, oh yeah, by the way, we're awesome.
Whatever. You can figure it out. We call each other by our names. It's fine. You know us.
It's true. It's us. It's fine.
All right. So, Claire, what are you
mm-hmm.
judging this week?
Mm. I'm judging my fucking doctor
Yes, please. Tell me more.
because okay, so my doctor, I went to see the APRN.
Mm-hmm.
She was not like the person who owns the practice that I go to, blah, blah, blah. This is female doctor, by the way, OBGYN person.
Mm-hmm.
And she, I guess during COVID, because apparently I have not been since right before COVID. Because they did say I went in 2020, but I know that I did not have to wear a mask. So I'm like, it must have been right before
Right
it all shut
before.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hadn't been since 2020. And the person that I usually see has left the practice now. And now it's just the main guy who owns the deal.
Right.
Never seen him. I mean, I've seen him, but I've never seen him in like
Right.
any kind of like examination capacity. Like he's never examined me. And so I'm like, ugh, great. Because I've only ever gone to women, which I know you haven't.
Right.
But I
But
was
the
just
first
like,
time you have not a woman, although I think
right,
my very first one was not a woman, so maybe I hit that ground running. But
right.
like it is a very different experience.
Yeah. And I really liked her name was Tanya when I went to. I loved her because she was super chill.
Mm-hmm.
She never like fat shamed me.
Mm.
I'm overweight. It's a thing. It's like it's life. Been that way for a long, long time. It's never gonna go away, even though I have a
Mm-hmm.
better childhood. I try, but uh, so I was wanting to like inquire about getting the implant in the arm as far as
Mm-hmm.
birth control, and so we sit down, introduces himself. We're sitting there, and so I ask about it, and he immediately, like right out the gate, immediately was like, "No, you can't have it because of your weight,"
Fuck you.
which I thought would happen.
Right. That's what you
I
told me. Yeah.
100% that was my fear. Was like they're gonna say you can't do this because of your weight.
Because we told me that I was like, but fuck why? Like it's not like you have
Right.
to take extra birth control pills or anything. It's the same fucking
No.
concept. Guys,
Right.
like get your shit together.
I know. Yeah, cuz and that's the thing about and I was reading, when obviously when Roe v. Wade got reversed that people started talking about the Plan B
Mm-hmm.
and the other drugs. I don't know names. It's just Plan B is the one that pops in my head, but the other like after morning after pill type drugs. And how it's like, oh, well, they don't work if you weigh over 180 pounds. And I'm like, excuse me?
What?
Like,
Everybody
what the
weighs
fuck?
over 180
I
pounds. That's nothing.
know.
That's not.
I know everybody's like, oh, well, this one only works if you weigh less than like 180. And they're like, well, then double up on it. And I'm just like, this is fucking stupid. Like, I don't understand. Anyway, so back to this particular time, he was like, your weight. Because at one time, the cutoff for the implant in the arm, the little rod
Mm-hmm.
thing, Nexplanon is the name of it. One time the cutoff was 250, and then he said the last time he had heard it had been bumped up to 280. And he went through this whole spiel about how he has a daughter who's really overweight and how he was like, if you were my daughter, I would tell you the same, I would tell
Mm-hmm.
my daughter the same thing because she has an IUD. And I'm just like, not a fan
I
of the
just
whole thing about IUDs. I'm just
it
like,
just I'm like, you want to put a thing where exactly? I mean,
yeah,
I think that's where my thing is. Like, because I strongly considered it for a while. I was like, I just don't know that I want something inside there
right. Just chilling.
that like you have to
Uh-huh.
implant in there.
Mm-hmm.
Just feels like a bad life choice. But
Right, right,
obviously it's great and a lot of people love it, but like I can't.
right.
I'm with you, can't wrap my head around it.
I'm just like, no. And it wasn't like the copper IUD. This is like the IUD that's got like the hormones and
Right.
junk in it that, keeps you from getting pregnant, whatever. And I'm just like, And so he goes and he gets the little pamphlet for the next one on. And there's like this packet of like newspapery
Mm-hmm.
material that unfolds into this
Giant
giant
thing. Yeah.
thing. And the text is
Teeny tiny.
like point two font.
Yeah. That's their
And
I
so
don't want
he's
to get sued
looking,
thing, but yeah.
right, he's looking through that and he can't find it. He
Cause,
cannot find.
'Cause it's not there.
It wasn't. And all it said was may not be as effective in overweight persons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
That was
yeah,
just may not. And then he gave me the pamphlet. And so I came home with it and I'm flipping through the actual like pamphlet itself, not that big
right.
newspapery paper. In the pamphlet, it said the whole may not be as effective because they had never tested it
Mm-hmm.
on people who were considered overweight or obese.
Mm-hmm.
They just came out and
Yeah.
said, we've not tested it. So that's just their way of covering their ass if you're overweight and it
Right.
doesn't work. So then I have told April about all this, obviously. So then she gets on the Google
That's right.
and she sends me this thing. What was it from? The National
It's from the
Institute of Health?
National Institute of Health, which is,
Yeah.
about as reliable as you can get in the world.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they're like, what, up there with like CDC as
Well,
far as like,
and
you
it's
know,
like
medical knowledge.
well, Craig and Anjali's daughter actually worked for them for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
like they're legitimate academic people who care about getting the information right. Like
Right.
they have there's no bias, there's no money that they're getting that makes them look the other way on stuff.
So
It's
like,
literally
yeah,
just
yeah, they're
knowledge
not
for
putting out
knowledge's
info
sake.
because somebody paid them to put out
Right.
info. Yeah,
Mhm.
this is our study. So they apparently did some kind of trial, and what April had sent me, 25% of the women were overweight, and then 30 something, it was like 38% of the women in this trial were obese. And in that, it said that it was not any different
Mhm.
than the normal. It didn't have any more of a failure rate than like the standard like 1% that it, can happen because some people just can't do birth control
Right. Well,
ever.
uh, it's
They have super eggs and they hook up with people who have super sperm and it
mhm.
just I don't know. I don't know how all that works. But it was just like, really? Like you're just going off this one pamphlet.
Mhm.
That's your information. So, I mean, I did not do it at that time. And he said, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write you a prescription for more pill birth control. And he gave me that. And he gave me like some stuff on the IUD and was like, and then he did apologize for like being so quick to jump down and be like, no, it's
Mhm.
because of your weight. So he did apologize for that because obviously the pamphlet proved him wrong.
Right.
But it just aggravated me
That's just the
because
first
it's all,
response.
well, not only that, but it's all based off of BMI,
Yeah. Which is
which
a
is
made up piece
trash
of shit anyway.
science.
Yeah.
Yes, it is trash science because it does not take, all it takes into consideration is your weight versus your height. It doesn't take into anything else like your bone mass,
Mm.
your muscle mass. It takes none of that in. It's just weight versus, and it's like you go around and you see all these other studies that they've done, and it's like people who are heavier sometimes wind up being more healthy than
Mhm.
skinny people because of their biological makeup and what they've got else going on in their body, which BMI takes none of that into account. Zilch, zero nada. So I'm just like, I'm over here judging BMI. BMI is
Yep.
junk science. It's bush, and we need to get rid of it. I mean, absolutely just throw that out the window that you can't judge somebody off their BMI. I was in a back when I was training for that Disney Princess half marathon. When was it, like almost like 7 or 8 years ago?
Wow.
It's
Mhm.
crazy. Actually, yeah, 8 years ago because it was the year I turned 30. Um, I was in this running group on Facebook, and all these women, they would like ask questions about, like people's opinions on shoes and running plans and training programs and all that stuff. But somebody had something out there about their insurance and how they were winding up having to pay extra for their insurance because their BMI and her husband's BMI were so high, but it didn't take into account that like her husband was like a bodybuilder.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
this person's like, yeah, he may weigh a lot for his height, but it's like you see pictures of this guy and you're like, this guy has like no body fat,
Right.
like zero body fat, and you're gonna say that he's unhealthy? Like, that to me is just, and she was the same way. I mean, she's a very muscly person, but she's not very tall. But it's still with her height and her weight, it makes her seem
Mm-hmm.
like they're like, "Oh, you're obese." And it's like, "No, she's not." Like you see photos of her and I'm like, I mean, she's got like the Michelle Obama arms with the, definition and all that. It's like, "No. How can you say that this person is overweight or obese just because of BMI?" They're not. You don't go in and like measure, fat content and all that.
I
And
was
it
gonna
just
say, and
drives me crazy.
it's it's stupid because the reality is that it doesn't matter as much. I mean, obviously we know BMI is trash, but like
Right.
your fat content is not as important as where it is on your body.
Right,
Like
right.
it's,
Mhm.
you know, if you have it in your legs, no one fucking cares. But if you have it on your stomach and and that ratio to the rest of your body is bigger, that's the problem. You're carrying
Yeah.
it in a bad place that has negative consequences, but you can carry that there and be in a completely healthy body mass index because
Right.
you happen to be tall and that's just where all of your weight is. And I'm like, well,
Right.
so you're missing the bigger picture. So I don't know.
Yeah.
uh, BMI is bullshit and needs to go away. And the other thing that frustrates me is that, it shouldn't be. It's one thing if he had come in and you had asked him that and he goes, well, I know at one point they had like a
Right.
weight cutoff. I don't know where that
Mhm.
is now. Let me look into that, which is how
Right.
any person in their field should do is to be like, I know at one point it was like this. Let me double check instead of being like, well, no.
Right.
Well, fuck you, like
Right.
because I had that thing that I sent you, I had already read that article before when we
Mhm.
first talked about it several months before. Because Claire told me immediately, like after, it's like, oh, you should get this. She's like, well, I just know that they're going to say no because of my weight. And I'm like, the fuck, why? And so, like, I looked into it and was like, no, it's not a factor. So when he
Right.
did that, I was like, the fuck?
Because I'm like, what did I?
It
What's
took
like?
me like
What did
a
I
hot
say?
5 seconds to find that answer on,
Right.
through Google. So I'm like, fuck you, doctor. This is your job. Get your shit together. And he should
Right.
know that because most people are overweight, by the way.
Right.
Most people fall into the overweight or obese categories. So, like, you should know that's your
Mhm.
job.
Right.
Ish.
And so he was like, "Well, just take this and look it over and, make an informed decision." And he was like, and he did say, he was like, "The decision is ultimately yours. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna." I guess after reading that and seeing that it was just not what he remembered, he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "It's your decision. I'm not gonna tell you no." So, I mean, I
Well,
still haven't called back because I'm
right,
still kind of salty about the whole thing,
right.
but I do want to call back and I want to look into getting it because
Well, and I feel like
I
you
mean, it's good for
should,
it's good for like 3 to 5 years,
yeah,
and it's like that's 3 to 5 years that I don't have to worry about,
taking a pill every day.
taking
Mm-hmm.
pills. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my judge is don't be so quick to like just no, you're too fat.
That
Like
is
that's I mean, because
an
'cause I've been
excellent
dealing
judge.
with
Yeah.
that my entire
Yeah.
life.
Well,
And I mean,
so
it's like all the time.
related, unrelated. At work, one of my coworkers went to really a medical resort is the only way to describe it in Mexico to do the
Okay,
sleeve
yeah.
surgery.
The sleeve, yeah. Mhm.
And this past week, a random person came into the library to find her because she had found her on like the social media stuff connected to that and want to talk to her about that the surgery. She was going to go do it too. She wanted to have the same thing done, go to the same place,
She
do the same
wanted
thing.
just some info. Yeah.
And one of the things that they were talking about is doctors in the area that are not fat phobic. because you have to have doctors on your team here that are really going to be supportive and help you and do all the things. And I was just like standing to the side because I was doing that. There are doctors that are just giant dicks. Like, what the
Oh
fuck
yeah.
else do you want? Like they've done all your
Mm-hmm.
things and they've made this huge life altering medical choice and you're not going to be supportive? Like what the fuck? Like it just made me incredibly angry. I was like,
Right.
"Ugh, you suck, everything sucks. I hate this world. Stop being fat phobic, especially doctors. It's gross."
Right.
Gross.
And I feel like
Your
they're
job.
only really honestly fat phobic to women.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's just I feel
Yes.
like it's that kind of thing because I had a friend who tore her meniscus in her leg. She was like an elementary school teacher, but she taught um some kind of dance class, and she did it one day while teaching her kids the Virginia reel. And she went to this doctor and his response was basically like, "You're old and you're fat. Lose some weight. That's why your knees hurt." Like
That's
that was his response to her.
that is
And so
gross.
obviously she found some other doctor. Of course, it was a female doctor who
Mm-hmm.
who was like, "Okay, let's get you an MRI. We need to do, let's, because he's like, he didn't want to look at it just because she was heavy. That's his immediate response is, "You're old and you're fat. That's why your knees hurt. You need to lose weight." And it just drives me bananas because that's basically, well, you probably should just eat better and exercise more. And sometimes I'm like, do you all don't fucking know how much. I mean, granted, not right now, this point, this juncture in my life, I'm not really exercising. But at times it's like, do you know how much I fucking exercise?
Yeah.
Like there are times that I was doing it like twice a day and was literally not losing anything. And even when I did do the half marathon during that the months, like it started in, I think the training started like into August, beginning September,
Mm-hmm.
and the half marathon was like into February. All that time, all that running, all that, I think I lost 15 pounds. It's not like, so I was just like, just shut up. If you've
Mm-hmm.
never had trouble losing weight, just fuck you and shut up because that's where I'm at with it. It's like, you all do not know the struggle. And this is like, even with, granted, there's sometimes there I work out and I don't eat that great, but it's just kind of like the workout staves off the not eating great. But
Right.
even when I am trying, like actively trying to eat well and, work out and be healthy, it still doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. I'm just like, y'all
Yeah.
suck because you all obviously don't know anything about female anatomy. And, you act like you do. You think just
Mm-hmm.
because you're an OBGYN, you act like you do, but you really don't. It's just like, go educate yourself some more.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy. It's so frustrating that it's like, it's just something I've dealt with my entire life. And it's just something that anytime something happens, I'm just like, oh, I'm probably not gonna be able to do this because they're gonna tell me I'm too fat. So, I mean, because that's just what I've dealt with my entire life. So that's my judge is just all of it. People fat shaming, anybody, but especially women, and not believing women when they're in pain and
Mm-hmm.
all of it. You know, it's just I have friends and I've heard so many stories about women who just like they have shitty doctors and they're just, really terrible doctors out there who just don't fucking listen.
It's true. Yeah. I've had some pretty terrible ones along the way. I've been very fortunate here that I've had pretty good doctors and, ones that talk to me like I'm a person and not just a
Right.
woman.
Right. Right.
But and it sucks. Like it sucks that like my coworker and that stranger, 'cause I don't know who she was, we're having this conversation that it's like you have to find these safe places even within the medical world where everyone is
Right.
supposed to be safe. Like they're all supposed to be there to help you. So I don't understand.
Right.
It's annoying.
And I think that's why I liked having Tanya
Mm-hmm.
instead of the guy because, like I said, she never really fat shamed me. She was just like, like, "Oh, your blood pressure might be a little borderline this time. Let's try to," but she never was like, "Oh, we're putting you on drugs." Like
Right.
she was never one of those that, like, "I'm gonna just put you on pills," you know. But it's like, yeah, but I think that also kind of blew his mind that it's like I'm as heavy as I am and I have no other issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, like my blood pressure is a little borderline, but other than that, it's like I don't have diabetes, I don't have heart disease, I don't have all these things that you see people that are my weight usually have, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know what to tell you. It's like
Well,
I'm fine.
you can tell them, you are the product of generations of people who survived really shitty situations like starvation and whatever. That's
Right.
why. That's what it is. That's what humanity is at this point. We survived some of the worst possible things that have happened that a lot of other people died from. The plague, famine, war, all
Right.
sorts of shit. Our ancestors
Right.
survived it, and we are the product of that. So, like, fuck you and your decision of what that's supposed to look like. You don't get it.
Right.
You
And just
you obviously had some
how
good peasant stock in you, Claire, that were like, fuck you. I'm living,
obviously.
bitches.
Right. Right. And it's just crazy to me to think that even like 50 years ago, like some of the shit that they did to women, because they thought, like telling them to douche with Lysol and crap like that.
Ugh.
It's just like, I know, right? Like that kind of stuff, just
Mm-hmm.
like, no, no. So yeah, that's my judge.
Excellent judge.
So what are you judging this week?
Well, you might remember from the tarot episode, I brought up our dear friend Greg Locke.
Oh, boys and more Greg Locke stories.
So, yes, apparently
Oh,
Greg Locke has been holding a conference about exorcism because you got to exorcise those demons, as we know. Because he's got that.
exorcise the demon.
Well, he's got that problem with the witches. There were witches in
Yes.
his
Uh-huh.
church, and there's
Yeah.
all these witches, and they're attacking him, and they're hiding their tarot cards and the wood chips of his piece of shit church.
Right.
You know, that guy. Well, so apparently,
His crappy tent. Yeah.
um, he claims that one of the exorcism experts, it says that in Africa, that witches astral project over crowds and pee on them. They're invisible.
What?
They're invisible. So, like, they're astral projecting, they're invisible, they're completely naked,
Mm-hmm.
and they're peeing their witch pee upon the crowd in order to, I guess, taint them. I don't really understand this. Like, it's just the most ridiculous thing that I come across. But so the only way
I can't even with this.
I, well, I mean, I love that. I mean, to be fair, I probably would pee on him if I could astral project and do that. That'd be fine. I'd do that.
I mean,
I'm,
same. Same.
but I mean, so many questions. But anyway, so this is what happens. Now, the only way, Claire, that you
Mm-hmm.
can deal with them, because they're invisible, so you can't see them,
Right.
is you have to find them. You have to pray over them, and then they will
Okay.
appear. They're no longer invisible. They become visible. They will appear in midair, and then they will fall to the ground because you're praying. And they're completely naked. And that's the only way that you can stop them from astral projecting and peeing on you. And apparently, this happens all the time. There's so many instances in which this has happened. And yet, he didn't provide a video, which I'm perplexed by because I want to see that.
What?
Uh huh.
In the
Mm-hmm.
actual hell? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what fresh hell is this nonsense? Oh my gosh.
And I'm just like, no
I
one,
can't. I just. Why?
like, I just can't imagine sitting there and hearing this and being like, sure, okay. I'm just like, I'm sorry, wait.
Right?
Why? 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 But also, if it happens all the time, I just want to go back to if it happens all the
Right?
time and there's all these instances, where's my video? And also, what does it feel like to be peed on? Is it like a light rain? Are you thinking you're getting rained on? Like, do you know that it's
Like
witch pee that
to
you're
be
getting? Do you
well,
just
not even that, just like the astral projection pee. Like to be astrally projected peeing. I don't even know. Oh geez.
but like who's the first
Oh my
person to
gosh.
be like that feels like astral projected pee
I mean,
on me, you know? Like
is it like sometimes when you're walking and you're like, is it raining? Did
is
I
there
just feel a drop
is
hit
it
my
raining?
head?
And then you're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, no, that's a witch. She's peeing on you through her astral projected body. You better pray over her so she'll appear midair and then
I
drop to the
can't.
ground." Like because Claire, this is all part of
What?
his witches are everywhere nonsense. And I'm like,
Oh
oh
jeez.
my God, why?
You know what? I want to be a witch just to go piss him
Right,
off. Like
right? Like I'm
something.
over here
Yeah.
going like, I feel like I want to like commit to witchcraft now just to like torment him. Like I just want to start like
Right.
sending him like witch subscription boxes and like tarot cards, you know, just
Right.
start sending him random.
Yeah.
Oh, start sending him like tarot card as like a postcard with like a little message. It says, "I peed on you last night.
I know, right?
I astral projected and peed on you. You're covered in my astral projected
Gosh.
witch pee." Fucking
Oh my
moron.
gosh. Wow. That's I'm sorry, but that's like next level
Well,
insane.
and
Crazy. I
like
just
you have to that like it's this is I mean it's
like he is not
hysterical.
a
You're like,
normal
what the fuck
person.
is wrong with you? But then to realize that there are hundreds of people who just believe him and will continue to follow him.
Right.
And now they're walking around
Right.
outside going, was that witch pee? That might have been witch pee. Oh my God, witch pee. Like, what the fuck?
Like we need to start praying right now.
I will tell you that
It's
we have
just
marked
like,
Tennessee off of places that we're going to live.
oh geez.
Lord.
Like all of mom's family lives there.
As
None
long
of
as they
them are
don't
like near his church.
go to
Well, yeah,
his
none of them are like near his church, and
church.
I don't think any of them believe that kind of nonsense. I just, oh gosh.
I feel like that's gonna be one of my first questions when I like talk to people is be like, how do you feel about witches astral projecting and peeing on you?
Right.
No context, just be like, mm-hmm,
Yeah, right.
mm-hmm.
And most people be like, say what? Like, eh? I'll be like, what are you talking about? And you're like,
And you're
that's what
like,
I thought.
mm. Right? It's like a way to kind
I
of
just,
like weed out the super crazy. Hmm.
right.
Mm. So
Just remind me to like never go to whatever city he's in because
I swear it's
just
like
like, no.
Mount Joliet. I don't remember now.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I don't know. But part of me wants to go and like hide things because I'm a dick and I want to.
Right.
Oh, get like UV paint or whatever and be like, this is witch's pee.
It is. It's Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he's at.
Don't go there. You'll probably get burned at the
Oh, have
stake.
you
I'm not
seen what the
gonna.
name of his church is?
It's something
The
fucking
name of his
stupid.
church is, yeah, Global Vision Bible Church
Yep, sure.
is the name of his. Just, yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
I'm
He's
hearing
just, yeah.
Global Vision bullshit church.
I
Hmm?
mean,
Hmm?
that's fair.
Ah,
He's just, also when he preaches, he's very angry and he looks like he's going to stroke out at any minute.
well, maybe he will, and then I won't have any more fun things to bring up about him. I'll be like, well, he's dead, so we'll just send tarot cards to the funeral. It'll be
Right.
fun.
Oh, but there are so many other hateful pastors out there that we can hate on. So,
It's true. I feel like I feel like they just keep popping up, man. Like,
right.
whoa.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
But I mean, you don't get many that are telling you about the horrors of having witches pee on you midair. So there's that. I feel like
Right.
we've leveled up here.
Yeah,
It's a whole new world of
I know.
possibilities of things to be like, you said what? You believe the what?
I mean,
Okay. Well, sure.
right.
Let's do this. Yeah. Well, there you
I
have it.
know.
That is my judge.
Holy crap. I don't even know what to say. Oh shoot. God. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And on that note,
I know.
welcome
It's
to
like
the main portion of our show where today we're talking history.
we are it's gonna be fun times.
I think
Is it my
I
turn?
think you go first this week. What
That's
magical
what I thought.
story from the land of history have you brought us?
Ha. I'm gonna be talking about the suggestion from was it your friend Ellen
Mm-hmm.
who she emailed in a bunch of topics for the wheel, but she also was like, if y'all ever get history, you should talk about this. So Olga of Kiev,
Ooh,
like it's Wikipedia has it as Kiev,
which is
like the
wrong.
city in
That is
Ukraine.
how Russians say it,
Yes.
and we don't like them.
And so I'm
Hmm.
not gonna say it like that.
That's
It's
right.
Kiev.
Kyiv.
Anyway. So anyway, talking about Olga of Kiev and what a badass boss ass bitch she is.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is. Let me tell you.
Go Olga.
All right. So yes. Oh, Wikipedia, all that's interesting, and Britannica
Ah,
are my sources for this
nice.
one. And so Olga of Kiev was born around 900
Damn.
CE. Yeah. Um, I also saw that it could be anywhere between 890 and 925.
Okay, so we have a span.
So
Sure,
it's
sure.
like, yeah,
Somewhere
but
in this
around
general
900, we
time
don't,
frame.
yeah,
Close enough.
yeah, yeah.
It's close enough.
People didn't keep good records back then. So,
Shame.
right. So she was part of a Viking empire called Kievan Rus. She was don't at me on some of these pronunciations because there's a lot of like Russian sounding things and I'm just like, oh, I don't know. She was Varangian, which were the first Vikings who settled in this area, and today it's um Pskov, Russia, near the border of Estonia. But the whole thing spanned like the areas today that are Ukraine, Belarus, and in Russia. So it was a big area that they ruled over, or that she was ruling over. Um, she was married around the age of 15
Mm-hmm.
to Igor of Kiev, and
Igor.
Igor's adopt Igor, yeah. Igor's adoptive father Oleg was responsible for establishing the capital of Kiev in the territory of Kievan Rus. So Kiev was the capital of their big empire, I guess. Anyway, she and Igor had a son, uh Sviatoslav.
Sure.
Anyway, so Kievan Rus had a lot of tribes that would pay tribute, kind of like dues, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And one of them was the Drevlian tribe, and they had joined Kievan Rus in a lot of military campaigns and had paid tribute to a lot of Igor's predecessors, but they stopped paying tribute when Oleg died. And they started giving their tribute to some local warlord around their area.
Oh, okay.
And of
Sure,
course,
sure.
Igor was like, I don't like this. They should be paying me tribute. They've always paid tribute. Why are they not paying me tribute? So he took a bunch of his, I don't know how much, like how big his army was. Anyway, he took some of his army to the Drevlian capital of Iskorston, Koriston, to collect the tribute. And it's actually just Koriston today is without the IS at the front.
I believe you. I've heard of
Anyway,
none of this, but okay.
but yeah, so he, confronted the Drevlians with his big Kievan Rus army, and they're like, okay, okay, we'll pay tribute. So I don't know what they gave him, but they gave him some stuff. So they leave, but on the way home, Igor decides that whatever they gave him was not enough and that he wanted more. So he took a small group from the bigger group and they went back to the Drevlians. And when they see, they're like, oh, this is not as big. They attack Igor and they capture him and kill him. And how they kill him is like, what?
Um,
What?
okay.
So they bent two birch trees down to his feet and tied these birch trees to his legs and then let the trees go and it ripped his body apart.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's yes.
I mean, like, apparently
Right.
stabbing someone through the heart is too
Right.
nice. Yeesh. Okay.
I know. It
Okay.
was like I'm reading this and I'm like, what? What
Do
is
they just like
this?
spend? I have to wonder this in history because people die such horrific deaths that I'm like, do you just like have
Right.
someone who spends their entire day going, "What twisted, sick way can I kill the next person?"
I mean, obviously. I feel like that's yeah. If I was reading that, I was like, that's new. I've
Nope,
never heard
that's
of
a
this
new one.
before. Okay. So anyway, so they killed Igor. So Olga was 20-ish at the time Igor died, and their son was only 3.
Hmm.
So because he was obviously too young to take over, she became like the regent ruler in his place until he would come of age to actually rule. And so after Igor's death, Prince Mal of the Drevlians sent around 20 dignitaries to Kiev to tell Olga that she should marry him because that's what men do.
Mm-hmm.
They just collect women.
Gross.
They just collect women. So Olga's response, and this was like in quotes on the Wikipedia page, was your proposal is pleasing to me. Indeed, my husband cannot rise again from the dead, but I desire to honor you tomorrow in the presence of my people. Return now to your boat and remain there with an aspect of arrogance. I shall send for you on the morrow, and you shall say, we will not ride on horses nor go on foot. Carry us in your boat, and you will be carried in your boat. So they're like, okay, cool. So they come back the next day. Yeah, they come back the next day and they say what she told them to say.
Right.
And the people of Kiev like pick them up in their boat and carry them, and they think like, oh yeah, we're being carried. This is like a great honor. This is cool. And then they're like, yeah, this is awesome. Until the people dropped them in a giant trench that they had dug the night before and began burying them alive.
Oops.
And it said that Olga watched them like be buried alive and inquired if whether they found the honor to their taste. And I'm like, ha!
Nice. She's like, fuck you.
Right, right. I'm just like, yes. Get it, Queen. Anyway, so the Drevlians didn't know what happened to this group of people, so they send some more distinguished men to her in Kiev, and so she could, go to their prince, that try to get her to like come back and marry Prince Mal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't know about the buried men, and so she's like, okay, yes, we'll welcome you in. we'll do all this, and then she's like, you all should bathe before we whatever, before we welcome you in. And so they all go to the bathhouse and she locks them in and sets the bathhouse on fire. And so they can't get out. So they all burn to death.
Mm.
I'm just like,
Buried alive
this
and
woman,
then set on fire. Okay. I'm here for this. I mean, she's just
all
being.
because these people,
I mean, she's
right,
playing the
killed her
game.
husband.
She's like,
Right.
a guy would do this.
I
It's
know.
fine.
She's just like, I don't care. Right. Right. And so then Olga sends a message to the Drevlians asking them to prepare great quantities of mead in the city where you killed my husband, and that I may weep over his grave and hold a funeral feast for him. And so Olga and her people went to Igor's tomb, and the Drevlians joined them there, and they have this big funeral feast for Igor. And the Drevlians started drinking like a lot, and they get really drunk. And so when they're extremely drunk, Olga orders her people to kill them.
Mm-hmm. Good
And
girl.
apparently over 5,000 people were killed at this funeral feast. So I'm like, this
Well,
is like red
yeah, it
wedding,
is.
like Game of Thrones red wedding level. Like this is, you know, and so it's just like how many of these men have she killed?
I mean,
It's just
they
like,
started
geez
it.
Louise.
So fair.
Right. Oh,
It's fair.
absolutely. Absolutely. So then, after this, Olga's army drove the remaining Drevlians back to their city, and then she led her own army to Iskoristan, and um, was the city where her husband was killed, and she and the army laid siege to the city, and the fighting lasted about a year, and it was just kind of like at a stalemate. There really
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like any moving forward, or it was just, and so she comes up with a plan to trick the Drevlians to win this siege. And so she sends them a message that says, why do you persist in holding out? All your cities have surrendered to me and submitted to tribute, so that the inhabitants now cultivate their fields and their lands in peace. But you had rather die of hunger without submitting to tribute. And the Drevlians were like, yeah, but if we give you tribute, we're still afraid about your retaliation. Which, I
Fair.
mean,
I
fair,
mean, she's just
fair.
like killing people all over the place. So fair for her.
Right, 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 right. And so Olga said that all the revenge that she had taken previously was enough. And so
My vengeful heart
basically
is
all she asked,
filled. I'm ready to be done. So
I
just
know,
give me
right?
my tribute and then we'll all move on.
So all she asked
Fools.
for tribute were 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each house. That's all she wanted, or a bunch of birds.
Okay.
So, of course, the Drevlians were kind of stoked about this. They're like, "Yeah, sure, we'll give you 6 birds from each house, 3 pigeons, 3 sparrows from each house." And they take the birds, and Olga orders her army to tie pieces of sulfur and cloth to the birds. And then that night, they light the pieces of cloth on fire and set the birds free. Where do the birds go?
Home.
Back to their home. Back to their home. And thus the entire city burned to the ground because she let those birds
Mm.
go with the fire and the sulfur that they carried with them, because they flew back to their home nests, and everything burned. It was a blaze. And as the people were fleeing, Olga had her army catch them and had some of them killed, and had some of them like gave them as slaves to some of her followers,
Mm-hmm.
or some people, in her kingdom. And yeah, so that's how she got revenge on the people who killed her husband. But this just also shows what a boss ass bitch she is. She stayed the regent ruler of Kiev and Rusk She evaded marriage proposals for years, decades,
Mm-hmm.
and defended the city during the siege of Kyiv in 1968, saving the power of the throne for her son.
Good.
So she still was like leading and all this stuff. And so at one point, she visits Constantinople to see the Emperor Constantine.
Mm-hmm.
I love this part of the story too. This is great. Um, he sees her and he, I guess, is smitten. I don't
I
know,
mean, she's
but
a
he's
boss ass
interested.
bitch,
Yeah,
so yeah, yeah, I'd be smitten too.
right. Well, and also, I think if he had like married her, he would have made him more powerful as far as like where he ruled and all that.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
um, let's see. So he was interested in having her for his wife, and of course she's like, "Oh, I can't. I'm a pagan. I'm not a Christian. I'm a pagan."
That's right.
But she said she would convert to Christianity if Constantine himself baptized her. And so there was this big to do. He baptizes her, and she winds up, her Christian name becomes, I've seen several things, Helena or Elena or
Mm-hmm.
Olena, kind of like Olena Tyrell from Game of
Mm-hmm.
Thrones with an O in the front. Kind of different versions of that. But so, he baptizes her, and after he performs the baptism, you know, a little bit goes by, and so then he asks her to marry him, and she's like, a woman cannot marry her godfather. So he became her godfather when he baptized her. So that's why she asked him specifically to baptize her, because she knew she couldn't marry him because she
Wow.
didn't want to. And so he admitted that she had outwitted him. And then he gave her gold and silver and jewels at her departure and sent her on her way.
Well, I mean, goddaughter, you're committed now. Gotta care.
Right.
Nice.
Right.
Fuck that marriage
And
shit.
so that is the story. I know. Yeah, she's like, fuck you, I don't need a man.
She's like, I had one. It didn't
And he
work
was why I
out.
like
It's
her so
fine.
much.
I'm done.
Yeah. He was dumb and greedy and he died.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to spend the rest of my life avenging him. But anyway, so then she winds up becoming a saint.
Sure. Sure.
Like later, they vote her into sainthood.
But like, she wasn't really a Christian. You get that, right? Like, she
Right,
didn't
right, right.
really
Well, and that's what they were
embrace
like. They didn't
Christianity.
know.
She was just trying to not have to get married and was like, fuck whatever, I don't care. Baptize me, buddy. It'll be
Right.
fine.
But anyway,
So
so
now
she
she's
is
a
the
Christian.
patron
Uh-huh.
saint of,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. But she is the patron saint of widows and converts. Yep.
The patron saint of
Yep.
widows is the woman who murdered thousands of people out of revenge. Yes. You know, every once in a while,
Yes.
the Catholic Church gets something right, even if it's not remotely
Right.
Christian. It didn't happen while she was a Christian. She wasn't ever really a Christian. It was just a ploy.
Right.
Bravo, Catholic Church. Slow clap. Slow clap.
Slow clip. But anyway, yeah. So she was Constantine baptized her, so it is what it is.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That is an excellent story.
I know, right? It's just like, I mean, she was also playing the long game
Yeah.
too. She was like,
Well,
the whole thing with the like burying them, like, oh, we're gonna dig a trench big enough that we're gonna drop their entire fucking boat in it to where they can't get out, and we're gonna bury them alive.
I just
Like, how big
love
was that trench? That's what I want to know.
I love that her people were so supportive of her that they were like, yeah, we'll do this. And we're
Right,
not going to tell the next people that we did this. We're not going to have any like super
right,
secret, hey, be careful or none of that crap because we're like, we
right,
like her. She's ours.
right.
Damn.
But then it's just like, I know. I'm like, the whole, like, oh, let's get these birds, put fire on them, and send them back. Like, I'm just like, That's like next level, I
Yes.
feel like.
Like I just
I
aspire
mean, that's
to her
better than like
level
any.
of petty
Yes.
and revenge. I aspire to that level, man. Her grudge holding
Right.
skills. Next time my mom
I
asks me for
mean,
my grudges, I'm gonna be like, look, I could be doing an Olga here, and I'm not. So like, back
right.
off.
That's right. It's just like I feel like that is like beats any kind of Trojan horse story ever.
Yeah, fuck that
You
shit. This
know,
is a way better story.
I know. I'm like, why are we not learning about this woman?
Because it
Why? Why are we learning about shit that didn't actually
gives us
happen?
power. Gives
Trojan
women
horse,
power. We can't give women power,
you
Claire.
know.
You know what happens.
That's right. Things actually go right. Things are
That's
actually run
right.
efficiently. Anyway, that is the story of Olga of Kiev, the boss ass bitch that she is.
I am here for her. Good job, Olga.
I am. I know. I was just like, I'm reading some of that. I'm just like, holy crap. I am. Yeah, that's the level of petty I aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh,
It's,
you killed my husband. Mm.
it's like, well, I'm gonna kill
But the whole like
all of you. You're
funeral.
all going to die.
Yeah, right.
Every last fucking, I'm gonna burn your
But like
city
the
to the
funeral
ground.
feast, it's like right. Funeral. I mean, because it was like over 5,000 people were killed at that funeral feast. I was like, wait, what?
Maybe
I
that's where
mean,
what's his name got the idea for the red wedding. Wilson?
maybe I don't know.
Be like,
I'm
red
just saying.
funeral.
Yeah.
What if it's
Right. 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 It's just like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. Need to be like her. Anyway. So yes, that's the story of Olga of Kiev.
amazing? That was an excellent suggestion, Ellen. Thank you. I don't think I would ever
Yes, I
have heard of
appreciate
her.
that, Ellen. No, I had not.
Yeah.
Because I remember when she sent it in, I just like did like a quick little
Mm-hmm.
Google search and I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then it was like I got into it more and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like she burned the whole city to the
That's
ground.
right. Like, fuck them.
Not only that, I feel like she was smart about it too. It was almost like work smarter, not harder.
Uh-huh. Yes.
you know, we're just gonna work smarter. Play the long game. It's fine.
All right. Well, I definitely can't top that
So,
story.
so what story are you talking about today?
Well, I thought in honor of the queen shucking her mortal coils or shit, whatever we call that. Since
right.
the queen is dead and long live the king, I thought we'd do a nice, fun little deep dive into one of the more murderous stories of the royal pasts. We're going to be talking about,
I love murder
yes,
and
we're
royals.
going to be talking about the two princes in the tower. Ooh.
Ooh, the two princes.
I got all of my information from historicroyalpalaces.org and the University of Essex.
Ooh. The University of
of
Essex.
Essex.
Okay, that sounds
Mm-hmm.
very fancy.
Okay, so this story is about the 1483 disappearance of Prince Edward and Prince Richard, who were in the
Okay.
called the Bloody Tower, but it's the Tower of London, so just one
Mm-hmm.
of their towers.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a lot of history because it's the history episode.
It is the history episode.
So we're going back to when King Edward the Fourth and his wife Elizabeth Woodville were the royals in charge. We'll go with. So
Mm-hmm.
the problem is
Yeah.
that this happens during the turmoil of the Wars of the Roses. There are many wars. It's not just one war. Wars, plural.
Mm-hmm.
It took place between 1455 and 1485. So, like 30 years of wars. Because
Yes.
basically, it was a bunch of civil wars because there were two rival branches of the Plantagenet, if you remember that from history, family. Two branches of the Plantagenet family that were fighting for the English throne. Dun, 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 dun. So we have
Dun,
yeah.
dun.
So we have King Henry VI, from the House of Lancaster, who is represented by the red rose because it comes up in all of the imagery, the paintings, blah blah blah. They're red rose.
Right.
It was the Wars of the Roses for whatever reason. Then you have Edward the Fourth from the House of York, who is represented by the white rose. Now, both of them were direct descendants of Edward III, who was the king, and it passed to King Henry VI, and Edward IV didn't like it, so we fought about it for a while. So I was saying. So
it's like, I want it. No, it's mine.
While this was going on, Edward and Elizabeth secretly married during the spring of 1464. Elizabeth was a widow. Her husband had already passed. And people weren't super happy about this. Court was really kind of upset about it for many reasons. Elizabeth was called the most beautiful woman in the island of Britain, but she came from a respected genteel family, but they were not titled. We know how much titles matter. And they were not.
That's important.
Well, and they weren't, and they didn't create a diplomatic ally in any way for Edward and his claim. So it's not like,
because it's all about getting allies.
It sure is. So they weren't super thrilled with her, and on top of that, her family, the Woodvilles, were Lancastrian supporters. The other side.
For shame.
In fact, Elizabeth's dead husband actually died in a battle for the fighting for the House of Lancaster. So it's really not super cool.
What?
I know, right? It's like,
oh, jeez.
But they're in love.
What are you doing, Edward? What are you doing?
Well, and it's really stupid because Edward had a cousin named Richard Neville, who was the Earl of Warwick, sure. Who had actually arranged a marriage for him to marry a French princess so that they would have the French as allies to support his claim to the throne. And then he goes and marries Elizabeth from the family that already fucking hated him.
Why?
And it blows up in his face.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
But love, Claire. She was beautiful. Love. I don't know. But so
did she love him though?
I mean,
because I feel like this is another Trojan horse thing. Oh, we're gonna get you to marry him, and then we're gonna infiltrate that way.
But his cousin was so mad that because he had put forth all this time and effort for this arranged marriage, that he ended up switching sides and started fighting for the Lancastrian side. I'm like, Edward, you're a fucking idiot.
Oh. That's next level petty. I love it.
I know, right? It's like, well, fuck you. No, all right. If you're not going to do what I say, I'm going to go over here and hang out with Henry. Right. Fuck you.
You screwed me. I'm going to the other side.
So the wars, plural, continue. And at one point, Edward was able to imprison Henry, kept him in the tower, and took the crown. And he became King Edward the fourth. King Edward the Fourth. Yes, is when he finally became King Edward the Fourth. There's name your kids new things, and that comes up so much in the story. God, it's annoying.
Right.
Of course, as wars do, especially when they last for 30 fucking years, back and forth. Henry was eventually freed from the tower by his supporters and was recrowned the king in an event that is called the readaption. What the fuck is that's not even a real word. Everything started freaking out when I tried to use it. I was like, okay. Readaption.
Adaption. Okay.
It looks
Adeption
like
with an
it
E.
looks like readeption. But I'm pretty sure it's readeption. I don't know. It's weird.
Okay.
It's weird. So,
Interesting. So now we're just making it work.
yes.
Okay,
Well,
cool.
it is the royal family. Let's be real. Okay.
Right.
So Henry has his crown back. Edward flees, ends up going to Flanders with his brother named Richard. His, Edward's wife, Elizabeth, is super preggish at this point, and she has like
Mm.
3 daughters, but she's also pregnant. Um, and they flee to Westminster Abbey because they were able to get sanctuary there. So they could live there and not worry about
Okay.
bad things happening. While she was there, she
Gotcha.
had her first son named Edward, ugh, because, that shit. God
Right.
forbid we, call him George or whatever, who would
Right.
become the heir to the throne in that line. So, because, right now Henry's in charge. Yeah. So, but
Yes.
then in 1471, Edward comes back from exile, defeats Henry in the battle of something that we don't care about because, guys, the Wars of the Roses, I mean, there's so much. And I intentionally left out all the battle names because I don't care. And you don't either. Let's be real. It's fine. I'm giving you the high points. Okay, so
It's fine. Yes.
in that battle, Henry's teenage son and heir died. So, like, Henry's imprisoned, he goes back to the
Oh.
tower, but his heir is dead. And Henry ended up dying a few months later, they say from melancholy, because his son and heir died in battle.
I'm sorry. That just it was a couple weeks ago. Brandon and I were talking about
Melancholy?
things. We're just like, yeah, and that came up in the because we were talking about like stupid ailments from like back in the day,
Right?
and he said something about, oh, I've got the melancholy, and then we watched a movie right after that where the guy was like, oh, I'm suffering from
Oh my
melancholia, and I about like lost it, and I'm just like, oh, melancholy, this is
melancholy.
so
Yep.
funny. Why is this a thing?
Well, he died from melancholy, but actually probably was just murdered because.
Right,
Because hello, he still
because
had a
that's what
claim to
happens.
the throne. They had to take him out, but they just put out that he died from melancholy crap. So whatever,
Right, right.
whatever. So
I know.
melancholy. But
He died from.
Henry's death,
Mm,
whether it was from melancholy or the fact that he was murdered,
or right.
made it much easier for Edward to super claim the throne. He's like, it's mine now because Henry's dead and his heir is dead
He's
and
dead.
it's me.
It's
And at that
mine.
point,
Right.
Edward had his son Edward, who was heir to the throne, but he also had a spare.
Edward and Edward. It's
I
just
know,
like
fucking hate that. Well, but this will make you mad.
yes.
Okay, so if you remember, Edward Daddy has a brother named Richard that he ran off with, or whatever. Now they're back.
Yes.
So
Uh-huh.
Edward has 2 sons at this point. Edward his heir, and Richard his spare. He named it's like you can't come up with any original names.
I know.
Not
It's
not
like, come
one.
on, guys. There are more names out there than just George, George and Henry and Edward and Richard. Like
Like
I
I
feel
just,
like that's like all
I,
that was there back in the day.
but
It's
I'm
like
like,
what?
you
And maybe
really
John. I don't know.
named your son after you, and then you named your second son after your brother, so that they're the exact same as you. Okay, whatever. That's just whatever.
Right. It's like,
Um, but when he became official king, adult Edward anyway, um, Edward became the heir, and Richard became the Duke of York, which has now become the traditional title for a monarch's second son. Started it with Edward the whichever number we're on, 4, Edward the Fourth. So
one of them.
yeah, that naming Naming the second son Duke of York became the thing.
Okay.
Um, Here's a fun, super unrelated fact to the story. Edward had another brother. He actually had several, but whatever. This other brother was the Duke of Clarence, and Edward had him executed for treason in the Tower of London. But some say that the way he was executed was that he was drowned in a butt of Malmsey wine. And I'm like, the fuck kind of an aside is this? Talking about weird ways to kill people. So, like, I don't know what his brother did. I didn't look into it.
Oh
But
my gosh.
he was like, bro, you're treasoning me. I'm going to have you executed by drowning you in wine. Okay. I don't.
That's special. That's what. I wonder if it was because he really liked wine. Was he like a drunkard? And it was like, oh, I'm gonna kill you and like what you love.
I think it's just another random way to kill someone because it's all they did back then was think of weird ways to kill each other.
Weird ways to kill each other. Right. Yeah.
But then it's 1483 and Edward IV dies. Very unexpectedly. He's only 41. They think he probably died from pneumonia or typhoid. It wasn't like an attempt on his life or anything. He got sick and he died.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And so at this point, his brother Richard, again the grown up, not the child, who is the Duke of
Mm-hmm.
Gloucester, becomes the Lord Protector of 12-year-old Edward V, because Edward V, that's where we are.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So the Duke immediately places Edward in the Tower of London for his protection, because at the time, just as a reminder, it was actually kind of the palace. It was basically the Buckingham Palace at the time. There was no other place. So, like, the royal
Right.
apartments were there, but he had been living with his mother's brother to be educated kind of away from everything. So, he hadn't been around. And now he's like, no, he needs to be here in the tower for his protection. Um, Closely followed by his 9-year-old brother, Richard, also ended up being moved to the tower for his protection. Because obviously, people might want to kill the little heirs to the throne for their own advancement. Duh. You know
Yeah,
how it is.
right. I mean, you've seen how these grown ass men have acted over the throne.
Right.
I'm just saying.
So, Edward IV died in early April, and Edward V at that point is king, but is 12. So, like,
Right.
is king, but also has to have like a real adult, because even then, 12,
Right.
still has to have a real adult kind of help
No.
do stuff. So, but
Right, right, right.
in the same way, Queen Elizabeth died, and immediately Charles became king. Yeah, like they don't have to do anything. They'll have a coronation maybe in a year
Right.
or two. I don't know. Don't care. Um, anyway, so Edward V is king. But his coronation is scheduled to take place on June 22nd because they're much quicker then. Come on, let's get the show on the road. But conveniently, between the death of Edward and the coronation date of June 22nd, Parliament declared that the princes were actually illegitimate on the grounds that Edward IV had actually been contracted to marry Lady Eleanor Butler. I think that must be the French princess. I don't know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Before he married Elizabeth, and having been contracted to do so, it actually renders his marriage to Elizabeth invalid.
Oh, snap. Yeah, Parliament being saucy.
So all of the coronation preparations were delayed till July 6th, which is like 2 weeks later, at which point Richard becomes King Richard III. Interesting.
The adult?
The adult.
What?
So good old Unky Poo is now the king. Huh. I wonder why Parliament suddenly decided to care about that after years and
Right.
years and years and years and years. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So June 16th is the last recorded sighting of the two princes who were in the tower.
Edward and Richard.
Edward
Okay.
and Richard, the 12 and 9-year-old.
Okay.
So, in something that in somebody's writings, it says the children of King Edward were seen shooting arrows and playing in the garden of the tower sundry times. And they'd just been running around outside playing because they're not prisoners, they're just
Right.
little boys, playing and having
Yeah.
a good time. And then in another writing, a very minor diplomat from Italy who was there in the court of whoever happened to be king at the time. His name was Dominic Mancini, and he wrote that the little princes were, these are his words, withdrawn to the inner apartments of the tower proper, and day by day began to be seen more rarely behind the bars and windows, until at length they ceased to appear altogether. Already there is a suspicion that they have been done away with. So Mancini's
Mm-hmm.
account suggests that they had been moved from the quote unquote bloody tower, which is where the royal apartments were,
Mm-hmm.
to the White Tower, which is where royal captives would be held, so that they were imprisoned at that point. Now, I didn't include all of this
Okay.
in my notes, but during this time, Mommy Elizabeth with her other kids had gone back to sanctuary at Westminster Abbey. And initially Richard
Okay.
was with her because Richard was still with her. He's 9, he's still little. Um
Right.
and the Uncle Richard came and was like, "No, no, I need to take him. I have to have him for his protection." And she didn't want to let him go, but she had to let him go. Like, it's a whole sad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she never saw him again because that was the last time anyone ever saw them. It is now widely believed that sometime uh, during the autumn of that year or summer, sometime around this time when everything was going on, that they were quietly murdered. They don't know who would have done it, but everyone is under the impression that Richard III ordered it because
Mm.
he wanted to be king, and his little nephews were in his way and would had the ability to
Interesting.
claim the throne for themselves in the same way that
Right.
Henry and Edward had fought about it for years. So, Richard the Second, Richard the Third, Richard the whichever one we're on here, Richard whoever he is, douchebag, Richard the Third,
Yes.
was killed 2 years later in battle with Henry
Ah,
Tudor, who became the king after that, his name being King Henry VII.
what you get.
So
Karma's a bitch.
I know, right? It's like, well, that didn't last long, did it, bitch?
Right.
Fun fact. So Edward and Elizabeth had several children other than Edward and Richard. They had
Mm-hmm.
10 children in total.
Good Lord.
Five of them, five of their daughters, they had 7 daughters. 5 of their daughters reached adulthood. 4 married very well, and 1 became a nun. One daughter, the oldest daughter, also named Elizabeth because what the fuck? Why not?
Why? Yeah.
Just name all,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I can't. I'm done. I'm out. Um, she actually married Henry VII,
Oh,
who,
nice.
became king after Richard III died. And so Elizabeth and Henry VII are the start of the Tudor family, which is kind of how we got to where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So in 1647, the bones of 2 children, approximately the same ages of the missing princes that no one ever saw again, were found beneath the staircases in the White Tower at the Tower of London.
Ooh.
At this point, the king was Charles II, and he had ordered the demolition of what remained of the royal palace in the south of the White Tower. And that included a turret that had once contained a privy staircase leading to St. John's Chapel. And so it was beneath that staircase that they found a wooden chest containing the two skeletons. So it wasn't like they were just like
Oh
in the ground and
wow.
could have been anybody. Like they were intentionally placed
Yeah.
there. Um,
Ooh.
an eyewitness account from that event in 1647, so okay, described pieces of rag and velvet were still adhering to the bones, and only royals were allowed to wear velvet, which is why they thought
Oh.
that these perhaps were the the missing princes. Charles
Mm-hmm.
II had them buried at Westminster. In 1933, they were forensically examined and concluded that the bones were that of a 10 and 12-year-old boys, two boys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but obviously, that's been almost 100 years ago. And so forensic testing is infinitely, like, I mean, we have the ability to
Right.
do things we couldn't do. And Queen Elizabeth denied every request to do further testing on the bones, every single one. She said no,
Wow.
which is weird. She kept like the stuff that I read was basically saying things like, well, like what does it even matter if they are, it doesn't tell us who did it or what happened, and if they're not, then they're just unknown whatever, and you're not going to be able to tell exactly when it was because we don't blah blah blah.
Right.
She's had all sorts of whatever. But and that they would have to like dig out someone else in order to compare DNA at this point, because to ensure that it was that DNA. Like, so they'd probably have to like
Right.
unbury someone else, and it's a whole thing. Blah 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 blah. But
Because
in
if it was me,
2000,
I'd be like, do it. Absolutely do it if it was
yeah,
me.
in 2018, Dr. Ashdown Hill, who is the same person who is able to confirm the identity of Richard III's body that they found in 2012, by the way. They found Richard III
Ooh.
in 2012. His remains were in like a car park in Leicester, Leicester,
Mm-hmm. Is it
Leicester.
like
I don't remember.
Leicester?
Whatever. Um, found in a car park there. So he was able to determine that he was Richard III using DNA and resources that they had. Um,
Yeah.
he has in 2018 been able to determine that the opera singer Elizabeth Roberts is a direct descendant of the prince's aunt, as in Elizabeth's sister, because too many Elizabeths, by the way.
Right.
Um, and
So many
so she is
Elizabeths.
able to be a source of mitochondrial DNA in order to compare. So I'm here to be
Okay.
like, King Charles III, here is your chance to fucking fix some shit and do a good deed. Like, just okay it. Just okay it.
Right.
It's fine. Let us find out if it's them. That's all. Just let us find out.
We need to know the answers to these questions.
We need to know. Okay. So that's basically my story, but I have a couple of fun facts for you.
Okay.
Okay, so the case is made even more intriguing because in 1491, a man named Perkin Warbeck claimed to be Richard, the 9-year-old boy, the Duke of York. He said that
What?
he had escaped the tower and spent the intervening years on the run. And for like the next 6 years, he traveled across Europe convincing people that he was truly Richard, Duke of York, including Maximilian the
Okay.
First, the Holy Roman Emperor, and
Yeah.
James the Fourth of Scotland, that he was in fact Richard the Fourth, because he should have been king. Like
Wow.
he was rightful heir at that point. And he convinced Margaret of York, who was the aunt of the real prince.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1497, he attempted to invade England to claim his throne. He failed and ended up in the tower where he confessed to being an imposter and was later executed. But can we believe that confession like that? Because you know they tortured him.
Right.
Confess anything. Weird, weird, weird. But
Like, I've seen the tutors and I've seen the ways that they tortured people, and I'm just like,
nope. Mm-mm.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
I'd be screaming too, just saying.
So, of course, we all know that the Tower of London is haunted by many, 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 many people who were murdered, horrendously executed for stupid reasons, and just being women primarily. So,
Right.
we know all of those things. But guests and guards alike claim that they have seen the two young boys dressed in appropriate time era clothing playing on the green
Nice.
outside the White Tower, which is where they would have played. Um,
Mm-hmm.
some believe they have captured photographs of them. I sent you one that was more
Yes, you did.
compelling than
It's
others. It's kind of
creepy.
a close up because it's actually a picture of like two people, like a grown up and a kid, and then there's like the creepy kid behind them. You're like, "Whoa."
Mm-hmm.
In fact, shadowy figures of two little lost boys holding hands are a relatively common sight at the White Tower. They seem to drift between rooms and melt into the walls. They're often wearing
Wow.
nightshirts and are seen primarily in the White Tower, which again is where they would have been taken after, when they were no longer being protected, but instead being
Right,
harmed.
right, right.
Um, but they've been seen playing along the battlements, and people often claim to hear the sound of children giggling, even when it's closed and there aren't children in the tower
There's nobody
anymore.
there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm
that,
sorry, but giggling children are frightening.
yes, that is a story of the two princes in the tower. It's very sad.
It is sad. It's a
When
lot of
we,
history too.
yeah, well, it's like, God, the Wars of the Roses, my God, so much.
Like they go on and on
And
and
on
on.
and on and on. When we went in 2019, um, mom, dad, and I and Anna went to the Tower of London. Amy and
Hmm.
Caleb went off to Wimbledon because tennis. Uh,
Yeah, right.
we went to the tower and like they have all, obviously the crown jewels and all the things, but they had an
Right.
exhibit about the two princes in the tower. Like it was super. I just realized that I didn't print off the last little bit that I wrote, but it doesn't matter. They were super into like that story, and it was spooky, and like
Yeah.
it talked a lot about how the last time they were seen they were just running around playing like normal boys, and they just were never seen again, and you're just like,
Ever seen. And that's creepy. That's like, oh my
mm-hmm.
gosh.
And they had obviously audio stuff kind of playing around, and they had children giggles in. I'm like, nope.
No. We're done. Nope, nope, nope.
uh,
Out. We're out of here.
but I remember it being this like super sad but also spooky kind of
Yeah.
exhibit in the midst of all of the stuff. So if you are ever there, definitely go check it out.
That's
But
pretty cool. I've been there.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. We all know Richard III did it, and in fact, Shakespeare wrote his play about it, and
Right.
like it's become like kind of common day lore about how things went down based on Shakespeare's particular imaginings.
Right.
But I mean, it in the same way that Olga, was killing all these people because she knew that if she had to get married, they would kill her child. They wouldn't
Oh
want
yeah.
someone else's child to take the throne or whatever they
The
call it.
throne. Mm-hmm.
So, it the fact that her daughters were able to just kind of marry off is probably the best she could hope
Without
for. And in
right.
fact, one of her daughters ended up being the royal line anyway, so it doesn't matter
Right,
genetically, I
right, right,
suppose.
right.
But so much killing.
I know, right?
Thank you.
Like the Wild West. Like the Wild West out there. It's just lawless. Like who
I
cares? Everybody just killing everybody.
know. Man, and
But
just
that was
like to be
excellent.
like
Yes.
king, like fuck that shit. I don't want to be king. Sounds
Right.
exhausting. Gotta wait till you're
Exactly.
73 years old before you can be king.
I know, right?
I'm a terrible human being. It's fine. Um, at work, because I was like, oh God, Queen Elizabeth died. I saw it pretty quickly. And we
Yeah.
were talking
Mm-hmm.
about it, and at one point, I was just like, wow, poor Charles. We're like, what? And it's like, I mean, like, he's 73 and he finally has to have a real job.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That was an excellent story though. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. And now you know all about the
Even with
Wars of the Roses, and just like, God damn it. Like, no wonder.
even with all the Edwards and Richards and Elizabeths, you're like, "Oh
Too
my
many.
gosh."
There were too many
Right.
Edwards, too many Richards, way too many Elizabeths. Like, holy cow,
Mhm.
guys. Like, what's wrong? What's wrong with, Jasper? What's wrong with, Claire or, Eleanor? Like, come on, just like
Right.
try harder.
It was like either Elizabeth or Mary.
Yes,
Like I feel like that was like your two
everybody.
options back then.
There's
Right.
only Elizabeth and Mary. There are no other options. But I'm over here going, at least Philip and Elizabeth named their children other names, and Charles and Diana named their children other names. And it seems like everyone's getting
Right.
their own name. That's fine. It's fine.
Right.
I don't. Ugh, gross. Okay. Anyway, so I guess that means that it's time for tarot time
Tarot time
with
with
April.
April.
Ah, spooky, spooky. All right, Claire, are you ready?
Do it.
Great. I feel like we should sing to Time to Shuffle the Cards. Isn't that the tune? God Save the Queen.
Oh. Uh-huh.
And to see what lies ahead. May we all be fierce as Olga and not dead like the two princes.
Oh,
Let
stop.
us keep our names and never name our children after us. Because it's stupid.
It is
It's
stupid.
so confusing. They can't all be Edward. You can't all be Elizabeth. Just stop. Well, and like
It's true.
Richard killed his nephew Richard. That just felt really dark to me. It's like, who's
Right. You're
fucking
just
named
like,
after you? What the hell is
I
wrong with you?
know.
God damn it. All right. Anyway, all right.
I mean, this is worse than like Scar and Mufasa. My gosh.
Did you see they're doing a new Mufasa?
What?
A new
No,
Lion
what?
King? They're doing a new Lion King called
Why?
Mufasa, the Lion King. I don't, because it's Disney.
What?
Is this Disney? I don't,
Let it go.
they can't. They already did that. They did that in Frozen and they did Frozen 2. So
Ugh.
they're never letting it go. Okay.
Oh my
Are we
gosh.
ready?
Yes.
We start off our week with the Page of Wands.
Age of Wands.
Our midweek is. Why do we always have swords? God damn it. The Six of Swords.
God. Six of Swords.
And we're ending our week with. Oh, Claire. Oh,
What?
Claire. It's the devil.
Yes.
Inverted.
Oh, inverted. We've not
It's
had it
the
inverted.
inverted devil. Satan is coming for us again. Nope. And then
Mm.
Aggie jumps off. I wasn't calling you Satan, sweetheart. All right. The Page of Wands. So earnest, this
it's
kid.
it's been a minute since we've had that one.
Present, childlike, full of piss and vinegar, as my grandma would say. He's about opportunity, adventure. Cue the Indiana Jones theme song, which is also got another movie coming out. I don't know what's happening, guys. I don't know what's happening. It's fine.
Jeez.
And hope. He's an optimist and a poet, a dreamer and an inventor, an artist and a fiery lover. Oh,
Well.
the Page of Wands is confident, is honest to a fault, is passionate, and will bring you with him. The charisma most often comes across in readings. You believe this guy and get excited about whatever he's excited about. He is a novice, an apprentice. He's just gotten his wand and doesn't quite know what to do with it yet. He's holding on with both hands. That's not true. He's only holding on with one hand. I think. One hand. Different card.
On your cards?
On my card. That's fine. But that's okay. He is young and impetuous, but that's not always a bad thing. Creating to create, smiling just to smile. There is an innocence and a fervor that makes this card very appealing. He's playing for himself, he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to stop himself and drop his wand and start all over again. But he's moving, and it's beautiful. I feel like this is actually the princes. Both princes are like, we're gonna live a great life, and then they die because the swords are coming. Right. Look, the swords are coming. Oh, God. Swords are always coming at us. What is this again? The Six of Swords? Six of Swords.
I don't think we've had that one. I went back and looked.
Yeah, okay. Water has an important role in this card. It's true. It's surrounded by water. The passengers, there's no passengers.
There's no passengers.
There's no passengers. That's fine. They're ferrying themselves, or he is ferrying himself and his belongings across the river from rough water to smooth. They are determined to make a change in their lives and are not going back. They have recognized what isn't working in their lives and have accepted it. And in accepting, have created the opportunity for change. Good for them. They're going from rough waters to smooth, literally. Let's see. The swords are acting as a shield for them. They're protected in the back by the man who's rowing them to safety. You can't see them, but that's fine. They are pointed towards new opportunities and growth, and they just need to keep going. Look at that, a good sword card. I didn't know that was a real thing.
I know.
Every sword card is like stabbing in the chest, being stabbed in the chest, guy, right. And being stabbed in the back. It's all the swords are stabbing me everywhere, and this one's like, go.
Like pain and suffering.
This is all like, you're gonna make a change, and you're going forward, and yeah. And I'm like, okay,
heck yeah,
bring it. That's fine. I feel fine with that.
Terrible, right? Devil inverted. Let's do it.
Inverted, this card tells about a foggy time. You're not sure where to go or what to do, but you're about 2 steps away from the fog lifting. So apparently, we're crossing that river. We're going forward. We don't know where the fuck we're going. That's fine.
Gotcha.
Breaking free of negative influences and bad habits. The chain is nearly off you. Don't give up. I found this quote that I really like from The Milk Train Doesn't Stop Here Anymore by Tennessee Williams. I don't think I knew that one, but okay.
What?
Devils can be driven out of the heart by the touch of a hand on a hand or a mouth on a mouth. Broken things can be mended. There's always hope. So it just sounds like we're going forward, but there's a fox. We're not really sure where we're going, but we're close.
Gotcha.
It's fine. So, okay then. Carefree as we go forward into the fog.
Right.
I'm here for that. That's fine.
I mean,
that's fine. And very, very apt for my life, which I'll tell you about when we finish recording. But
right.
Surprise for you guys later. Lol. Okay. Going back to our main scene. Okay. Claire, we had a great time on history. This was fun.
We did.
I thoroughly enjoyed these. These were great. But what are we doing next time? It's time for the wheel
of
fate. It's gonna give us something that we've had before.
Family curses.
Family curses. Dude, I have some of those.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Man,
Family curses.
I'm very excited for this. This will be fun. All
Gonna be
right.
awesome.
So join us next time for Family Curses, which is also probably a
Right.
little history sprinkled on there because, you know, there's
Right.
usually a history as to why you're cursed, but we'll find out.
Exactly.
So until next
It's
time,
true.
follow us on everything, everywhere. Please like, subscribe, share with others so that we can continue to do this and have a good time. You can find
Yes.
us in all of the places at
Brunch and Judge.
and send us an email with some more topics for the wheel or specific topics you're interested in hearing about. We'll try and cover them when we hit our topic. Like we did this
Right.
time with Ellen's Olga, who is now
Yes.
my personal patron saint. Screw the whole
I
widow
know,
convert
right.
thing. I'm like bitching.
Right. I know.
But you can send us emails too.
Brunchandjudge@gmail.com.
So until next time, keep on brunching.
And keep on judging.
Bye.
Bye.
Brunch and Judge. Brunch and Judge. We brunch and judge everything and give you opinions that nobody asked for.